The markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Robert Tan. Catch up with us on Business Brief. Asian shares were mixed on Friday ahead of an update on the U.S. job market that will offer insights into how the economy is faring. The U.S. Labor Department is due to report on how many more jobs U.S. employers created than destroyed during May. Japan's Nikkei 225 edged higher by 0.37%, while South Korea's Kospi posted a strong gain of more than 1%. Singapore's Straits Times Index also recorded a modest increase of 0.14%. On the other hand, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index dipped by 0.21%, and China's Shanghai Composite is flat with a downward bias. Australia's ASX 200 slipped 0.12%. In the currency markets, the US dollar strengthened against the Japanese yen, rising by 0.28%, and also gained 0.11% against the South Korean won. It held steady against the Hong Kong dollar. Meanwhile, the Australian dollar weakened slightly after it fell 0.11%. The US dollar is flat with a slight uptick against the Singapore dollar and also flat with a downward bias against the Thai baht. Gold rose by 0.67%. In the oil market, prices saw slight declines with West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.36% and Brent crude slipping 0.32%. Meanwhile, Dubai crude edged up 0.51%. In cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin increased by 0.85%, while Ethereum jumped more than 2%. The Philippine dollar reserves rose to $105.5 billion in the first 5 months of the year. Latest data of the country's gross international reserves, or GIR, from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or BSP, shows that this is higher than the $105.3 billion recorded as of end April. BSP explains that this provides a robust external liquidity buffer for the country. The central bank adds that the month-on-month increase in the GIR level reflects on the upward valuation adjustments in the BSP's gold holdings due to the increase in the price of gold in the international market, net income from the BSP's investment abroad, and national government's net foreign currency deposits with the BSP. Data from the Philippine Statistics Authority showed that factory output of domestic manufacturers jumped 4.3% in April, reversing a 1.4% drop in March. Volume of production also turned around, up 4.2% in contrast to the 2% dip in March. Basic metal soaring 17.3% after a steep 43.8% fall last month drove the recovery. Average manufacturing capacity use increased to 76.6%. Every industry division operated above 60% capacity in April. Top performing sectors are tobacco with 88.5%, minerals at 83.6%, and furniture at 81.1%. The Chamber of Mines of the Philippines, or COMP, opposes the proposals to impose an export tax on mineral ore shipments. COMP Chairman and President Attorney Mike Toledo warns that the measure, combined with higher excise taxes, will create overlapping levies that can harm the mining sector's long-term viability. Toledo underscores the need for a balanced, transparent, and stable tax policy, as he argues that this approach is more effective for sustainable resource development and attracting long-term investments. His statements come after a proposed bill to establish a new fiscal regime for large-scale mining has been stalled in the bicameral conference committee, since lawmakers are unable to resolve a deadlock over a controversial ore export ban that aims to encourage investments in domestic mineral processing facilities. The unemployment rate climbs to 4.1% in April. That's up from 3.9% in March and 4% in April last year. The drop in employment hit key service industries, including manufacturing, food and hospitality, entertainment, retail, and other services. Vice President Sara Duterte is back in the Philippines after a trip to Qatar and the Netherlands. She spent her birthday weekend in The Hague, where she also visited her detained father, former President Duterte. Her office says she will address relevant matters in the coming days. Her arrival comes days before the Senate votes on whether or not they should convene as an impeachment court for her trial. The proceedings were initially scheduled this week, but Senate President Chis Escudero postponed them to supposedly allow the chamber to tackle priority measures. President Bongbong Marcos joins the Muslim community in commemorating Eid'l Adha, or the Feast of Sacrifice. Marcos calls on Filipinos to embrace the meaning of the solemn celebration and reflect on what kind of offering truly strengthens a nation. The president also stresses letting go of pride brings people closer to the Almighty. For her part, Vice President Sara Duterte expresses hope that the celebration reminds Filipinos of the importance of sacrifice, faith, and kindness. She emphasized that these values are not only important to faith, but to our daily lives as a nation. Another round of fuel hikes looms next week. Diesel could jump by as much as 90 centavos per liter, while gasoline may see a 60 centavo per liter hike. Kerosene could go up by up to 40 centavos per liter. The increase follows market reaction to tighter global supply and geopolitical risks. Oil firms are set to announce price adjustments Monday. We're taking a short break. The biggest business stories from around the country are up next. You're watching Business Brief. Back on Business Brief, a local food manufacturer is setting its sights on stronger international growth. Our reporter Sujin Kim is in Taguig City with the details. Go ahead, Sujin.
Robert, Megaprime Foods is pushing to double its export contribution from 5% to 10% of total revenues as the company expands its global footprint to over 30 countries. Despite geopolitical uncertainties and the ongoing US-China trade war, the Philippine food manufacturer sees opportunities, citing that lower imports from China have resulted in cheaper raw materials, while preferential tariff treatments in the US are giving Filipino exporters like Megaprime a competitive edge. To sustain momentum, the company is pursuing a 28% top-line growth in 2025, a significant jump from its historical compounded growth rate of 18 to 20%. President and CEO Michelle Piu Lim Chan says capital expenditure this year rose by as much as 30%. Part of its aggressive strategy involves horizontal diversification. Following the acquisition of Jim's Coffee in 2024, Megaprime plans to expand into both branded food and non-food products, including legacy Filipino brands seeking scale or succession support. The company's vertical integration from fishing to canning remains its competitive advantage. Robert, actually, the company revealed that it is IPO ready. Professionalization and transparency are driving its decision to consider public listing. And those are latest updates from Taguig City. Back to you, Robert.
Thank you for that report, Sujin Kim. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump's spending bill is spelling the end of his bromance with the world's richest man, Elon Musk. Their fiery breakup out in public, with Trump posting on social media that he had asked his former billionaire backer to leave the administration because he was wearing thin. Musk then called Trump an ingrate, saying without him, Trump would have lost the elections. Trump wasn't done, though, and suggested cutting government contracts and subsidies awarded to Musk companies. No problem, says Musk, as long as Republicans remove what he called a mountain of disgusting pork in the budget bill.
Look, Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if we're well anymore. I was surprised because you were here. Everybody in this room practically was here as we had a wonderful send-off. He said wonderful things about me. But I'm very disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here, better than you people. He knew everything about it. He had no problem with it. All of a sudden he had a problem. And he only developed the problem when he found out that we're going to have to cut the EV mandate because that's billions and billions of dollars. And it really is unfair.
Musk, the CEO of electric vehicle maker Tesla, has said he opposes the proposed budget because it will increase federal deficits and burden Americans with debt. The billionaire also denying Trump's claim he knew everything about the spending bill. He says it was passed in the dead of night, so fast that almost no one in Congress could even read it. Musk would later escalate the public spat further by linking Trump to the so-called Epstein files.
People leave my administration and they love us. and then at some point they miss it so badly, and some of them embrace it, and some of them actually become hostile. I don't know what it is. It's sort of Trump derangement syndrome, I guess they call it, but we have it with others too. They leave, and they wake up in the morning, and the glamour's gone, the whole world is different, and they become hostile.
President Donald Trump calls the U.S.-China trade talks in good shape after a phone conversation with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Speaking to members of the press at the Oval Office, Trump says he expects mutual visits and more meetings between top U.S. and Chinese officials. Xi reportedly warned Trump against trade threats and Taiwan moves, but Trump described the call as very positive as rare earths were discussed. Rare earth metals are essential in making smartphones and batteries, among others. China produces as much as 99% of the world's supply.
We had a very good talk, and we've straightened out any complexity. It's very complex stuff, and we straightened it out. The agreement was we're going to have Scott and Howard and Jameson will be going and meeting with their top people and continue it forward. But no, I think we have everything. I think we're in very good shape with China and the trade deal. We have a deal with China, as you know, but we were straightening out some of the points, having to do mostly with rare earth, magnets, and some other things. By the way, he invited me to China, and I invited him here. We both accepted. So I'll be going there with the First Lady at a certain point, and he'll be coming here, hopefully, with the First Lady of China.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro slams the U.S. for banning travelers from his country and nearly a dozen others. Maduro accuses President Trump of being poisoned with lies and defends Venezuelan migrants as decent, hard-working people. Maduro said he was appealing directly to Trump because he believed the U.S. leader was deceived by his advisors about the South American country. Countries affected by the latest travel ban also include Haiti and Cuba.
Yo le envío un mensaje a usted.
How can you say, President Donald Trump, we don't accept them? I spoke to you face to face so that the message reaches you. There, you're being fooled by many as he was fooled in his first term to poison him against the people of Venezuela.
A federal judge has issued a temporary restraining order on President Donald Trump's latest attempt to block international students from coming to Harvard University. Trump signed a proclamation that suspends international visas for new students at the nation's oldest and wealthiest school. Foreign students make up roughly a quarter of Harvard's student body. A hearing has been scheduled for mid-June to tackle arguments over whether the judge should block Trump's proclamation indefinitely. The Global Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index, or PMI, lingers at a low level of 49.2% in May. Data from the China Federation of Logistics and Purchasing shows that the index has remained below the 50% threshold for 3 consecutive months, indicating that the global economy continues to hover at a low level. Regionally, Asia's manufacturing PMI returns to expansion territory at 50.4%. Meanwhile, the index in the Americas contracts to 48.4%, while both Africa and Europe lingers at 48.7%. The introduction of a 10% tariff by the U.S. on nearly all fisheries imports poses risks to the global fisheries trade. That, according to a global trade update released by UN Trade and Development. The report cites U.S. imports worth $16 billion, while exports are worth $4.5 billion. The report also found out that Mexico, Canada, and Brazil are the most exposed to the U.S. tariffs on fisheries. The report warns the U.S. needs time to scale up its production, as tariffs could push domestic availability down and prices of some fish products up. We're taking a short break. Business Brief will be right back. Back on Business Brief, we head over to the West Philippine Sea where Chinese vessels linger. A Chinese Navy warship was monitored while our BRP Andres Bonifacio was conducting a maritime patrol near the Panatic Island in the Calayan Island Group. The Philippine Navy ship issued 4 radio challenges, but Beijing asserted their claim over the territorial waters. 2 other Chinese maritime militia vessels were also spotted in the area. No aggressive incidents were reported. First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos led the opening of the country's largest free heritage trade fair, dubbed Likhaing Pilipino or Likha for short. Now in its 4th edition, Likha features 30 new artisans, joining veteran exhibitors, spotlighting local enterprise, culture, and creativity during the 127th Independence Day celebration. Running from June 6 to 8 at Foro de Intramuros in Manila, visitors can buy, engage, and support heritage-based livelihood. And that's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Robert Tan. Join us again next week as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business, only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. See you then.